Welcome to the Ascent Life podcast. I'm your host, R. Brandon Long, here with the mission to inspire 1 million people a day to live their best lives and become the best version of themselves. That is what we are calling living an Ascent Life. Please subscribe to me on YouTube at Ascent Life now so you can see our wonderful, beautiful faces as we bring you the audio through the podcast-only version. We begin today with our From the Pages segment, reading from this book, Psycho-Cybernetics, first published in 1960 by author Maxwell Maltz, and he decided to define or put an acronym to the word success as defining success. So his acronym for success he uses S is a sense of direction. In other words, you must have a goal in life to shoot towards. U, understanding. And understanding, he suggests as a foundation or in communication with others. So a foundation and understanding of your world. Courage is the courage to bet on yourself. That's the first C. The second C is compassion, meaning pretty much like the golden rule in life. Be fair to others. E, he suggests the word esteem, and that is self-worth. The first S in success, self-confidence. And he says, you should probably learn how to fail fast and learn from your failures. And then finally, the last S in success, self-acceptance. And that is referring to, and we have a great guest on for this, your uniqueness is your superpower. So by accepting yourself and accepting how your unique self is presented to the world, that is your superpower. Yes, you can be inspired by others, but you do need to find your best self to be your best self. That self-acceptance is certainly important. In fact, he says, accept yourself as you are and start from there. Learn to emotionally tolerate imperfection in yourself. It is necessary to intellectually recognize our shortcomings, but disastrous to hate ourselves because of them. So, welcome to the Ascent Life podcast. Our guest today is a good longtime friend now, I can say, artist, boulder enthusiast, pontificator, Eric Zschiesche. Zschiesche is Zschiesche. If you got that on the audio version, congratulations, because that's a mouthful there. But you said there's an interesting I don't even want to talk about the background of Zschiesche, the surname, but that's a tough. How did you learn to spell Zschiesche?
Actually, it was probably one of the high points, at least in grammar school, was I got a handle. Because back in those days, Brandon, I mean, you're just a little younger than me, but it used to be where at least children and kids, I attended public school, and but to my memory, I mean, like my brother and I and all our young childhood peers, we were all taught to read in first grade. I think that's pretty much has gone by the wayside of other sort of things, covered wagons and such. But so as far as that formation of letters and sounds, and of course they did teach phonics back then. I think it's having a revival. Speak about how kind of technology can come and go, but. So as far as spelling the name, it's actually fairly easy. If a person can just kind of commit to memory this simple kind of element or structure in my last name, in that Zschiesche, I mean, like when my great-great-grandfather, and what's in a name, I mean, it's a nice name. I like my last name in so much that it has a certain strangeness to it. But honestly, I mean, I think that as far as last name, we should probably have our mother's maiden name over our father's, not to sound too like politically correct or kind of new wave here, but given the, let's just say, the expenditure of energy and time and such that women do regarding the act of childbirth and that element of how we all come into the world, it seems as though they've got a hand in it every bit, or in my opinion, more so than men. So, but if that had been the case, instead of Eric Zschiesche, I would have been Eric Johnson. Honestly, Eric Zschiesche is fine. And that said, so my great-great-grandfather immigrated to this country, as many of us are, except for a number of folks that were here somewhat earlier, the indigenous folks. But he listed Prussia. So that would put it as far as an area of Northern Europe and like Eastern Germany, Poland. And the fact that my last name has these two consonant sets in them that are fairly common in Germanic languages, the SCH. It's a fairly common consonant structure. Think about Schmidt, Schultz, go slightly Yiddish, but there's definitely an overlap between Germanic language elements and Hebrew, at least the spoken Yiddish, in that like schmuck or such. And but that said, I mean, so it has two SCHs in my last name, and before the first one is a Z, and then there are vowels.
That gets you about halfway there.
You have the consonant set, so it's Z, S, C, H, and then the consonant, or the vowels, I-E, and then S, C, H, and then an E on the end. So actually, the name, if you can just remember those two consonant sets, but that said, I mean, it's a fine name, and I respond to it alongside other things.
Yeah. Well, I want to begin with your art, and I want to know if you remember the first piece of art you put out to the world.
As far as the first works that I created, honestly, I do not have like an immediate memory of those, in so much that my brother and I have one sibling, a brother who's a year and a half younger, Mark. We grew up in a household that was artistic. Both my parents have passed on to that area, region we go, wherever that may be. But they were both artists. My late father was a nationally syndicated editorial cartoonist, and my mother was a painter. And so my brother and I, we always had art materials as kids to scrawl on. We didn't have to, I guess, wind up making crayon marks on the walls, though we may have, I don't know. There was an event where we were throwing water. It was a rental property before my parents bought the home that was their first home they purchased in Greensboro, but that was another element there, throwing water on the wallpapered walls in this rental, because we realized, whoa, it makes the wallpaper really brilliant, and then the wallpaper started peeling off. It was the only time I can distinctly remember, actually, our dad paddling us. I mean, my parents did not believe in, let's say, corporal punishment, and but yeah, he couldn't believe it. He had gotten up to use the restroom, and my brother and I were probably like 5 or 6 or so, and we were giggling and running back and forth into the bathroom, and my dad came into that room. It was my brother's bedroom, and he couldn't believe it. The walls were just covered with water, and the wallpaper was starting to peel off, and anyway, it was. But as far as like the creation of my first pieces, I cannot recall. My mom, as mothers is sometimes prone to do, kept numerous things, and so I've got actually a box somewhere of like childhood drawings from both myself and my brother. But honestly, I cannot remember the distinct act of drawing or creating when I was not even in grade school. But by the time I would say I was like probably 10 or 11, I realized, because I was one of those kids that just continued drawing and making art right on through high school. And then, I mean, most kids have a propensity, as you know. I mean, you've got a couple of kids, they're at that point now, they're probably moving on to other interests and activities, but most children at a young age, like say 6 and under, are just kind of, I think they naturally are enamored with this means of like, part of it is just like being able to use this material i.e. like a crayon or something like that, and make this mark that just kind of magically comes forward. And but it's a fun thing. I've enjoyed it for many years, decades. I still make pieces of artwork. I do not do it with the level of kind of either intensity or probably output that I once did. For part of it is about 8 years or so ago, 9 years ago, I kind of shifted, got out of the commercial business end of art making as far as shilling product out of galleries and dealers and that whole game that I did for about 20 or 25 years. But it's a powerful thing. I mean, to me, human expression and obviously the visual arts deal with this means of conveying many different things, ideas, beliefs, notions, aesthetics, beauty, confusion in this format. But then we live in a time that's wonderful as far as these different opportunities we have. I mean, not the least of which, I mean, right now, having this conversation and being able to send it out into the airwaves. And so it, but anyway.
Well,
and you'll have to excuse me. I get kind of long-winded there, Brandon. So don't feel timid about like breaking in or whatever. If you feel, or just a good kind of deep throat clearing, whatever you need to do.
That's so funny. I want to let you go because you're a great storyteller. But you were prolific as well, though. I think I read about 50 pieces a year.
I used to, and some years that was probably definitely on the low end. I mean, but and at this point, it's like. I mean, I've sold quite a few works through the years, but the production of it was never a challenge for me. And so at this point, I live in an older brick bungalow up near the Ogden High School. And for people that aren't familiar with the Ogden city area, it's a nice city that was at the crossroads in northern Utah. The transatlantic railroad ran through this area, and so it has an interesting, at least for a state like Utah that can be fairly homogeneous, at least on certain levels. It has an interesting history and some would say checkered past, but it really, there are all these wonderful homes that were built back 100 years or so ago, part of the historic essentially residential section of town. And I just live up in an old brick bungalow that was built actually the same year as the Perry's Egyptian Theater down on Washington, 1924. But it's a great house, and it's filled. These days, I just live by myself. My ex-wife, she put up with me as many years as she could, and I finally, I fault no one that I've ever known for, as far as when we went our separate ways, it was amiable enough. And that said, I just live these days in a house by myself with some probably spiders and dust kittens that ran in, but the whole place has turned somewhat into kind of an older fart's man cave, and so there's just art stacked everywhere. Because I mean, my late mother, who died back not quite 2 years ago, she lived here in town about 5 miles north of me, up near Bonneville High School. Anyway, she ran a tight ship. She was a wonderful person and very interesting. But so at this point, I've got like boxes of my late parents' respective artworks, boxes of my father's cartoons, comic strips, and editorial cartoons, paintings of my mother's, paintings of my own. And then through the years, decades, I was always interested and most certainly enjoyed trading art with people. So the house it's turned into this kind of interesting little strange personal museum of effects, but that's okay. Somebody's going to have to deal with it at some point. It's probably not going to be me, and hopefully, well...
I love that. But also your home is just west of what we would call the Boulder Field in Ogden, or Boulder Field in Ogden. A place when I was I think I was 17 or 18 when I was first introduced
Mm-hmm.
to this sport of bouldering and then eventually rock climbing. Before we had any, I don't think we had any gyms in town at the time. We had one. But yeah, we learned outside on the rocks. And you had been doing that sport. It's probably 20, 30 years by then. So
Possibly. I mean, when did you start? Can you recall what
So
year?
that would-
And if I may ask,
Yeah.
what area of town? Because you grew up here somewhere in Ogden, right?
yep, I'm in Washington Terrace, right around the block from Bonneville.
Okay, so then you went to which high school? Then you went
To Bonneville.
Okay, you went to Bonneville, and I think I misspoke when I was referring to my late mother. Ben Lomond, because she was over
Opposite
there
direction.
on the
Yep.
top of like 7th Street or something. So I misspoke there, which is not at all out of character. but that's it. So you grew up over at Washington Terrace, went
Yep.
to Bonneville,
Yep.
and then easy to get right up to the mountains. And so can you recall the
the
first
access is
time you
perfect.
were up
So,
there running
yep,
around climbing?
Totally. So the first time I ever, it was the boulder field, and it was now, boy, the names. Let's see, the big one that faces west, right there on the shoreline, and that was the first boulder I ever climbed, and that would have been in high school, so probably 90 or 91.
Okay. In 90 or 91. So, I mean, you've been at it for well over 30 years, and
I've taken about 25 years off, so that's
that's okay. It's the type of activity. I mean, as far as it's fun seeing people share things and different items that people put forward on online and such. But there seems to be not only a number of people that are continuing with the activity, climbing as they get older, but it seems as though there are a number of participants that are actually coming into the sport as kind of, let's just say, older people. I mean, people that are in their 50s and 60s and even older that are essentially coming into the climbing for the very first time, which is wonderful to see. I mean, I feel biased on a number of things, not the least of which I think climbing is a wonderful activity, and I really think it offers something for everyone as far as because you can always, to some degree, modulate it to the type of either experience or most certainly, say, your physical wherewithal. As long as you can kind of, I tell people, if you can climb a ladder, if you can put a ladder upside your house, or at least climb up a ladder, you can rock climb.
Yeah, you just have to pick the right boulder to get up. Something a little easier maybe to start, and then you get better as you go. And
right.
You at one time, I use the word prolific again, climbed a lot. Was out there a lot. And then now, did you sustain yourself through art, or were you working odd jobs to kind of get through your heavy climbing phase of life there?
Well, so when I initially started climbing, which I got into the technical aspects of climbing with ropes and gear in my right at the start of my senior year in high school, and by the time I finished, and I had not planned on going to college or the university outside or immediately after high school. So I had already kind of decided that I was not going to, at least at that moment in time, opt for that as kind of furthering my academic instincts or career, so to speak. But I totally hook, line, and sinker into the activity of climbing. And so then for a number of years, probably 7 or 8 years, I was just a classic, what's referred to, I'm not sure what the origin is of the word dirt bagger, but as far as dirt bagging for climbing, most certainly has certain connotations, not just the literal element of living in the dirt, which I most certainly did a fair bit. I mean, today a lot of people are in vans and raised up off the ground, but I just wound up where for probably 7 or 8 years I went climbing throughout principally the United States, and part of it was just the ease in which one could move around the United States compared to like going overseas or taking a plane overseas. I was just listening to a friend of mine who's my same age. He lives in Wisconsin. He was doing a fair bit of traveling and climbing and going to areas like Europe and Australia. So I had numerous friends back in the 70s, late 70s and 80s that were traveling outside the States. I just moved principally around within the United States, and I'd oftentimes go where it was somewhat warmer, because if I wasn't working and living in some kind of little shack or hovel while I worked, oftentimes I was just living in a tent.
Yeah.
And so I would work, like the first job I had out of high school was I worked like for the winter in a concrete plant, building the huge, essentially the large concrete drainage pipes that are used in almost all large contemporary cities today. You oftentimes will see them when they're getting ready to implement them into the
sitting on the side of the road
infrastructure.
before
Exactly. Those just huge, like 3 to 5 foot in diameter concrete pipes. So I did that, which was just, it was. And till this day I can still remember it was above minimum wage, but they had like a revolving essentially door of people coming and going, because the work was it was not at all very pleasant. You'd get up and oftentimes work like 10 or 11 hours. You would just have to work until the job of the day was completed. And the job of the day was you'd go in the morning, you'd break apart the molds, you'd move the huge pipes out of this plant, and some of the equipment being used was you definitely wanted to kind of stay away and out from under anything you were lifting off the floor, because the rickety stuff. Anyway, the place was just, somebody was making money hand over fist. It sure wasn't out there working on the. But I can remember that at $3.25. That was what I was being paid. And then you would set the molds back up, clean them out, set them up, and put wiring in there for internal supports, and then kind of grease the interior of the molds. As I remember, it was just like with some type of oil or something, and probably used engine oil if I had to guess.
Wow.
And then you'd put the concrete in, and then it would set up and was fast setting concrete. And then by the next morning you went in, you'd bust the thing down and do it all over again. Day after day after day after. But I had just kind of worked in construction some. One of the better, at least from a standpoint of pay, was I worked out in the oil fields in Texas for about probably 4 or 5 months in the early 80s. I think it was like 81 in the fall, early winter. And that was a great job. I mean, I couldn't believe, even though it was still technically in the Southeast, the wages they were paying. And I saved enough money in just like less than a half year's time to live on for, I think it was like close to 2 years or so. It was pretty crazy.
Oh, yeah. So were you climbing there in Southeast Texas?
I went out to Enchanted Rocks.
Okay.
Because I went out there with a good buddy of mine, Lindsey Broom. He and his wife live in Colorado. But anyway, Lindsey and I headed out there from North Carolina. We're going, let's just go out and work in the oil patch. And but we drove out one time to go out to Enchanted Rocks. Other than that, I was just there working. There was like a stone block, I think it was like the high school or something in town, and we used to go and do some bouldering on that. But I was just out there working, trying to make as much money as I could and not lose any appendages.
Yeah.
Which I came away, all my fingers and digits, and still have at least most of those things still connected to me. I did almost lose a finger out there, and which would not have. I mean, the interesting thing is, if you spend much time like in the oil patch or whatever, and I would imagine still the same today, but back then, like over 40 years ago, I mean, it was unbelievable how many literally people were just like missing fingers.
Really?
Oh yeah. I mean, it was just like part of,
Yeah.
I mean, especially I was working for a service company. You're out like doing these things and dropping tools down into the wellhead. So you're working around the wellhead and then dropping stuff down in there, and principally perforating, and then that would enable big companies like Halliburton to go in and pump in essentially a type of solidifying agent. Think of like kind of concrete or something, because when you're drilling and then the well comes in under pressure, it's got to be super stable. And so you can go through, you hit like pockets of water or such, and if that gets displaced while the well is being drilled, you have to go in and actually fill those sections up with essentially a material just to create this solid and more stable element for the pipe to exist within. But I was just like standing there by the wellhead, and we'd go out there in they were perforating trucks, and they were pretty crazy. They had like a half a mile of like 1/4-inch cable on this huge spool, and these computer banks, and that you'd go out and you had the people out like tending to the equipment, and then you had people working in there in the instrument panels, and you'd send these things down into the well. And one of the main things were sending these things, the perforating devices, which are essentially just explosives. Think of like a really heavy gauge coffee can.
Yeah.
It's got a plug, and they would just build these in the shop. You know, there was like a couple of fellas there.
Yeah.
And oh man, occasionally you hear about like, in fact, one time it didn't happen to the essentially team or the company I was working at there in Caldwell, Texas, but yeah, one time there was some team over in adjacent county or something. A lot of people got hurt because somehow something malfunctioned. The thing blew when it was still above ground. And you're talking about it just would blow out these huge plugs. I mean, think about, a caliber plug a lot bigger than you put in like a 12 gauge for a single plug shot. And it'd just throw those out in all directions.
Oh, jeez. It's not good.
Oh, man, but we already had the thing. It was already going down into the well, and so, and I was just there, talking, shooting the shit there near the well, and the cable's just whizzing by close to me, and as I am prone to do, wave my hands around, and gesturing this way and that, and my hand, it caught, or I should say, a little burr, because you've got this cable and it's just zzz, and there was just a little burred cable on the cable that caught and I had a glove on. It caught my hand and it whipped it right in. You got this big steel shiv. It's a pulley, the thing runs it through, and then another one up high so you can run the thing up and down into the well. Whipped my hand right into this big metal pulley, and I just, whoa, and I yanked my hand away as quickly as I could, and the glove was there, and it was like missing 2 fingers. And it was just like on my hand, kind of hanging, and I went, oh, no way. And I was just looking at it, and the other couple fellas there, they just were looking at it, and they were going, oh. But then I pulled the glove down and my fingers came out.
Yeah.
Like those two. They were still there.
Let's go.
Anyway, I've had a few close calls, but anyway, I kept all my fingers and those sort of things. And
well, and you kept climbing, and you 7
I did. I kept climbing, and I still love it. Honestly, I enjoy it as much today, Brandon, as I have at any point in the past. I still get such a kick out of it. I so enjoy. I mean, amazingly, I still feel like I can climb pretty well compared to my past levels of kind of, let's say, physical wherewithal and
well, you were no slouch. In fact,
I was reasonable. I could kind of run with on a good day. oftentimes some of the stronger climbers, if in the area or such. So I definitely was, but it's been interesting to see because like. I still have some friends that have maintained and have kept an interest and a desire to continue on with it, but many of them have gone on, and too many people have passed on elsewhere. I mean, which has always been one of the difficult things about this sport and activity. At least the younger people seem to be a little more, let's say, sensibly minded. We won't talk too much about some of the soloing exploits that some of the well-known personages today are doing, but that's a subset. I mean, my sense is the vast majority of people that climb today are, and there are many more people climbing, are doing it in a pretty responsible, practical way, which honestly, I mean, it's a sport that can be done, and personally, I think it can be done in a way that is quite safe. But then there's definitely games you can play that are less so, and then there's alpine climbing, and there's certain games that you play, activities, styles of climbing that just the objective hazards become greater.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's a great activity, and I so enjoy it. It's great to see what people are doing today. And,
well, you just entered. I emceed a local climbing bouldering comp.
That was great
that
fun.
You were in. Yeah, you're still entering competitions.
I'm still entering.
65.
I no longer. It's been a long time since I've won one, but that's okay. I had that occurred at one point in time, but honestly, it's just a joy. It's I still enjoy doing it myself, and I so enjoy just engaging with and seeing what people are doing, and just part of it is, I think, shared experiences. Oftentimes, if we can step back and just view it from kind of the overall element of human beings engaging in this shared activity and passion, and the game, the quality of just play that embodies many things. Most certainly, like say an activity like say climbing or sports in general are these activities that human beings have, I'm sure, have done for a long time, which is a form largely of, I think at best, of just kind of physical play, where we're in these bodies and you're using them to do these kind of interesting and fun things.
Yeah.
Obviously, I mean, competitive elements can enter in. That is part of just the numerous energies that swirl around within us. Competitive qualities, as well as ideally we could use a little more cooperative energies to move through our psyches these days. But
well, and I want to talk about these days. So with a long history of touching nature, literally on the rock, and you apply what you maybe think about while you're out there to your arts throughout the years, landscape, people. And now at your current wonderful age.
I'm appreciative of every year that rolls around. I was just talking to an old buddy of mine, and we were talking about birthdays, and he's a few years older than me, and I was telling Tom, well, you got a big one coming up here. Tom's 70, and he's always, at least for himself and with certain elements of his own life, he always plays things down and tends not to. But no, I for my own self, I think it's a fine thing. I obviously the whole kind of gift element and having the things that are, let's just say, pomp and ceremony. I think it's, if one feels inclined, it's a nice thing to do for kids. I think it becomes less important as you get older, but the acknowledgement of it and the awareness of, another year has passed by, and obviously it's kind of to some degree a subjective demarcation or this kind of means of measurement, and that, I mean, the day before you turn the next year older, you're that. But that said, it's still
Yeah.
I'm
Yeah.
good with it. I'm good with celebrating things in different ways. And
Well, I'm curious to know what do you look? How do you look at life now? What are your goals now? What do you wake up each day and you're excited about, and that becomes your purpose now?
my purpose now. That's a good one. I think I've always been kind of looking for my purpose there to some degree, or at least I'm sure that like how we present and the kind of our characters, the person that we are, is a reflection of many different things. I mean, I think that that is, there's a lot of luck involved there. I mean, just like literally the luck of the fact that we're all here to begin with. Because I mean, it's a little wild to just think about back to like that point before you're even what is it? I mean, before you're like an embryo, you're a what is a zygote or whatever the heck it is. But even before then, I mean, like you've got these independent elements of the egg and the sperm. But I mean, talk about competition. I mean,
That's where it all begins.
when it all begins. But I mean, when there's that competition for all the sperm to get to the egg, I mean, we're talking a lot of sperm. I mean, that sounded loud. Oh, that's okay. I mean, I think most people, I'll try to keep expletives and things like that to a minimum. But no, I mean, like, and I have interesting. This pretty much underscores how kind of eccentric and I guess some would say weird my proclivities can be. But I mean, on average, I mean, when we're talking about the number of sperm competing for that one single, much larger egg, it's like somewhere in the proximity of like a quarter to a 500,000. You're talking about a huge city. Imagine a huge city of people all running toward this one single door. And dude, only one person makes it through there. And man, I mean, and supposedly, I mean, theoretically, or there's a lot of ways of looking and thinking about the world that are way above my pay grade and means. But supposedly every distinct sperm is distinct in and of itself. It's not as though they're all alike. Otherwise, there'd be a bunch of folks that'd just be more clone-like. So, I mean, every one is unique. So, I mean, we all win the biggest crapshoot of our life right at the very, very beginning.
Yeah.
And then after that, it's just all like, there's obviously one's own tendencies and energies play a part, but the whole thing in nature and nurture, and then just the luck of where you're born.
Yeah.
I mean, think about it in this day and age in the world and just the things that exist on this
100%.
planet.
Yeah.
And I mean, I give so much thanks for such just so many things that have occurred in my existence that just have created essentially who I am today.
Yeah.
But then I think most of us have this. It's kind of an awareness, or it's probably just almost an internal drive to follow these elements that seem to be a part of our own person. That spark that makes us all. Everything has a unique quality to it, and then how it manifests itself and presents and yeah, it's very, very intriguing, and then to just reflect on how much is like super dependent on more subjective arrangements in our own brains, and how much of it is because, like as a kid, I enjoyed certain activities, certain types of sports, and swimming and running, ball sports, hitting things, and playing basketball, and was never too much into football. Football, at least when you're young enough, you didn't have to wear pads and you could take a tackle. But by the time you're like 7 or 8, it's getting a little hard. And by the time you're 10 or 11, it's like, whoa, this is too hard, this contact. But I think about, like, say, an activity of climbing. When I got into that, it was like, wow, this really clicks as far as a form of, like, physical movement and engagement. So but I think it's more we just all have certain probably avenues that I don't think it's fated, but that for whatever reason just engage us more and we just find it more interesting.
Yeah, for sure.
Heck, I don't.
Well, I started the podcast off with a definition of success from a 1960s book and author Maxwell Maltz.
I like the thoughts that that individual had. I like the kind of references or the attachment to the acronym there, success, and in many ways, I think that it encapsulated many of the elements of how I would view success, and to a large degree, I mean, it's important for us, or at least I feel anyway. Obviously, all of this is just an opinion, thoughts out of my own head, and but I think from my own observation and sense is that that it's important to feel. Not in like a narcissistic way or in a kind of in a way of betterment or in a hierarchical way, but I think it's important for us to feel comfortable in our own skin and to feel at peace with the person that we are and that we want to try to become. I mean, I think unfortunately a lot of human ills are just caused by people for, unfortunately, just feeling in a place of consternation with their own person, which is unfortunate because, I mean, I think just being appreciative and thankful and accepting of one's own lot and enjoying that it goes a long way. I mean, in many ways, I think we can create problems for ourselves beyond the ones that exist in a tangible format structurally. In that, how do we look at things? Are we going to look at them in a highly pessimistic way, or are we going to try to be more optimistic? And obviously, you can go too far in either direction, but I to me. And I just marvel at it more and more every day of just simply how honestly amazing it is. This thing of just being alive.
This thing called life.
Just being here and being able to like feel and sense and experience this. I mean, it's a staggering thing. And so... Anyway, I probably got long-winded. I even kind of slightly forgot. Outside of, I think you alluded to success, and God knows I have no outside of. I think we kind of make our own success to some degree. If you set the bar, depending on a lot of things, and it's not. I don't think I've had like low expectations for myself, but I guess to some degree, I have not oriented my life in a way that's been. Generally, I would say very fixated or focused on certain things. Like some people can just be very preoccupied or focused on elements like, say, fame and fortune. Which, I mean, if it comes, it comes. To some degree, I think you have to position yourself with many things. But to me, there are things that we probably should be a little more hesitant or careful about trying to pursue, in that ultimately I think both of those things, both fame and fortune, though people do and people try to realize let's say, gradations of that, pecking orders and such, ultimately, I think it can be a fairly empty thing to try to realize, and that, and it's just not only my own kind of sense or feelings about it, but the observation of how people that have either striven for or strove for, and such a word, and or have realized it, in that I think. Be careful what you wish for, and to some degree, as kind of cliched as it is, and seemingly on a level maybe unimportant, but in many ways it seems like the simplest, most basic components of our life, I think, can afford us and give us the greatest sense of both accomplishment and comfort and balance. I mean, just like our ability to carry on a conversation. And apologies, this is part of it's probably kind of the format here. I mean, but like talking, but part of talking is listening, and I feel like sometimes I haven't been listening to you quite enough. It's like you got this mic in front of you, and oh my God, it's like my late grandfather. My grandmother said, "Oh, it doesn't take a nickel to wind Johnny up." But going back to it, like, I mean, just interacting and having people that comprise our sphere of family and friends, people that we love and enjoy being with, just the and some things, then again, chance kind of falls into place. But I mean, just how our own lives unfold, as far as hopefully people are able to realize a level of just kind of basic creature comforts like shelter, food, clothing, things where we are not feeling too a great a level of like privation. Because those create stressors oftentimes in and of themselves, and then for as far as like a structural and physical standpoint, I'm just hopefully one's health is at a place where you're in a reasonable state of health. I think for most of us, kind of knock on wood, you want to maintain certain levels of kind of physical and mental autonomy once. Part of maturing and becoming older is we hopefully become somewhat responsible for both our actions and give some foresight and thought to tomorrows and save some money for rainy days, sort of things like that. But sometimes challenges health-wise arise, Brandon, and then it's like, okay, how do I essentially move through this as gracefully as possible, but fortunately, I mean, this day and age, I mean, with our technology, medical science, and tools, a lot of problems there can be addressed. But I think, I mean, if you've got people that love you and that you love, and you're in a reasonable state of health, and you're not at a place of just want from basic needs, that's a good way life. Ahead. Yeah, you're way ahead of a lot of the things that we should be concerned with. And then after that, I think if we're lucky, we have maybe different activities, things that we enjoy engaging in that challenge us to some degree, and that we're interested in, and then to just be appreciative and thankful for this day as it is, and to just acknowledge really how amazing. I really like, though sometimes certain words carry a connotation and they can seem, but really just a word like awe is beautiful in and of itself, because in a way, I think to be in awe of this life and this journey and this place that we are is a good thing, because it is very, very amazing.
Yeah.
And
well, I appreciate you sharing your thoughts with us here on the Ascent Life podcast. As we close up here, by the way, everyone should go. You have a great YouTube page, a great YouTube channel. And so you were in like this wealthy area of, I want to say Georgia this summer. Is that right?
I was.
Yeah.
Yes.
And it's a great mix of climbing, bouldering, video, and pontificating on wealth and philosophy. People should check out Eric Zschiesche on YouTube. It's pretty great.
Oh, well, thank you, Brandon.
Yeah.
I appreciate that.
And then before we leave, though, I want to know, how do you want to be remembered? How are we going to remember Eric?
Honestly, I'm pretty much okay with however that comes about, and in so much that I'm not going to be here, Brandon, or at least
right, right.
I mean, well, that's a whole nother thing there. So I'll be the first to say, as far as when it comes to any kind of definitive ideas or notions about anything, that would be a tall order at best for me. I honestly. I have no idea what occurs, whether there's an afterlife or not, or et cetera. That said, though, I mean, I do have this sense, and I think a lot of things, if you think about it, just stem from we become aware, and for many people, it happens reasonably early in our lives. I think most people, by the time we're probably 10 years old or so, we are aware that this is a finite existence. But when we're children, even though we have an awareness of death, or at least my own personal experience with it, thinking back to how I thought about death when I was young, like say under 10, compared to now, decades later, it's more abstract. I mean, you realize that it's something that's going to occur, but then as you get closer to that point, you realize it's definitely going to occur. But part of it is, I think it's like being okay with that, realizing we can't do anything about it, at least at this point. I mean, who knows? At some point, maybe there'll be an option. You can get a new model, and drop it in your sentence. And I've got no idea. But going back, long-winded here again, let's get to being remembered. I feel as though, I guess my only hope there would be the people that continue on, that have some memory of me and direct involvement and engagement with me while I was here, will at least, hopefully, when they give thought to my person in memory, it will bring them some level, maybe a laugh, maybe a smile, maybe a good story or two. Hopefully people will remember me in some kind of favorable way. I feel as though I have a reasonable chance that it will probably be hopefully more that way. Than I'm hoping not too many people will think of me with like great consternation or just frown or scowl. So honestly, I just hope that I'm remembered as having been somewhat of a favorable human being to be around. Outside of that, if that comes to pass, that will be more than enough.
Well, yeah. I love it. Well, and I'm grateful to have you on the program. I appreciate it, man.
I've enjoyed it, Brandon. And as far as you can edit it and do whatever you want, hopefully you got some useful material here. This is it. I've got no idea.
That is the one and only Eric Zschiesche. Still making art and still enjoying the outdoors and climbing up rocks and living life. And I'm. I hold that in high esteem. So that is something that I look at and strive to be like. So nice work, Eric. Appreciate that.
Thank you, Brandon.
Thanks for tuning into this podcast episode of the Ascent Life. And if you made it this far in the program and you're not subscribed to us on YouTube, you definitely should cruise over to Ascent Life now on YouTube and subscribe. And for your daily dose of inspiration, I'm also on Instagram at Ascent Life. And you can subscribe to my weekly Ascent Life newsletter, where I share what I learn as I break down, and I read books. I read a lot. And so I put my thoughts into the weekly newsletter there. The link will be in the description and the show notes. Thanks for joining me on this journey as we all push towards self-actualization through resilience and adaptability, creating a positive impact on the world using our own unique ability to fulfill our purpose and become the best version of ourselves. We'll continue our paths together on the next Ascent Life. Cheers and Godspeed.